This is also a time of change for my family. Catherine becomes Queen Consort. In recognition of her own loyal public service, I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely.
The room at Windsor was prepared for reconciliation, but Catherine's answer shattered the hope before the family even arrived. What Charles expected to be a final private reunion became something far more painful. A quiet refusal that left him speechless, exposed, and forced to face the emotional cost of years of buried tension. This was not a public scandal. It was a family wound opening behind closed doors. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine read the invitation once, then again, while William watched the change come over her face. She did not raise her voice. She did not tear the paper apart. She simply placed it on the table, as if the weight of it had become too heavy to hold. Windsor Castle, the royal residence often used for private family gatherings and official moments of unity, had been chosen as the place where Charles hoped to bring everyone together before a major public appearance later that week. The plan sounded gentle on the surface. No cameras, no formal statement, no public performance. Just the king, Catherine, William, Camilla, and a small circle of senior royals gathered in private. But Catherine understood why it mattered. If she attended, the palace could present silence as healing. If she refused, the cracks could no longer be hidden. William knew before she spoke. The prince had seen that stillness before, the kind that came when his wife had already made a decision in her heart, but was searching for the least painful way to say it aloud. Catherine was not trying to punish Charles. She was trying to protect herself from another room where peace would be demanded before truth was allowed. The reunion was meant to soften tension inside the monarchy, an institution built on inherited duty and public loyalty. That mattered, because one broken private gathering could weaken the image of unity the family depended on. Yet Catherine saw something different. She saw a staged act of emotional repair, one more carefully arranged moment asking her to absorb pain quietly so the crown could move forward untouched. Charles waited at Windsor, believing she would come. The king had convinced himself that duty would carry Catherine through the door, and that William would stand beside her for the sake of the family. Then the message arrived. Catherine had formally refused to attend the final private family reunion at Windsor. For a few seconds, he did not answer. Camilla looked toward him, searching his face, but he remained still, the words landing harder than any public criticism ever could. Her refusal carried a hidden message no courtier needed to explain. Catherine no longer trusted private palace gatherings that demanded unity without first acknowledging the pain that had been ignored. And as the silence settled over Windsor, the question became not why Catherine refused, but who inside that family had made her feel she had no other choice. Every family crisis has a center, but this one had an absence. Catherine's empty chair became more powerful than any speech, any royal title, or any carefully arranged palace gesture. Around that chair stood a king searching for peace, a prince protecting his wife, a queen consort measuring the damage, and a monarchy suddenly forced to admit that private loyalty could no longer be commanded. Charles had imagined the reunion as a final act of repair, a private moment where pain could be softened before it turned into something permanent. He believed Windsor could still hold the family together, not because the walls were grand, but because the history inside them carried pressure of its own. To him, this was not just dinner behind closed doors. It was a last attempt to stop private tension from spilling into the future of the crown. The crown meant the monarchy itself, the system of royal duty, public service, and family symbolism that depended on unity even when the people inside it were breaking. That was why Catherine's refusal cut so deep. It did not simply cancel a chair at the table. It challenged the idea that loyalty could be summoned whenever the palace needed calm. William understood the invitation in a different way. The prince did not see healing in it. He saw another request for Catherine to sit quietly, smile softly, and carry the burden of peace, while everyone else avoided the truth. Catherine felt sorrow as she refused, not rage. That made the decision even more powerful. Anger can be dismissed. Sadness cannot. She knew Charles would be wounded, and that knowledge weighed heavily on her. But attendance would have meant crossing the emotional boundary she had fought so hard to protect. William did not speak over her. He did not explain her pain for her. His silence became its own form of protection, a quiet shield between Catherine and the pressure of the institution. Charles walked toward the place reserved for Catherine and touched the back of the empty chair. For one brief moment, the king looked less like a monarch and more like a father, realizing that authority had reached its limit. He withdrew his hand slowly, as if the absence itself had answered him. Camilla watched him closely, and she understood the danger before anyone needed to say it aloud. Catherine had not entered the room, yet she had taken command of its emotional center. The queen consort could feel the balance shifting, because the refusal had moved power away from the person who arranged the reunion and toward the woman who refused to be arranged. William's stillness made that message impossible to ignore. Catherine had signed the refusal with her own strength, but the prince's loyalty stood behind it like a locked door. Charles saw that now. This was not a passing disagreement. It was a line drawn inside the family, and once drawn, it could not be erased by titles, tradition, or carefully chosen words. Yet the emotional fracture did not begin with the invitation itself. It began earlier. In one moment, Catherine never forgot. To understand why one invitation could carry so much pain, Windsor had to look back to the private incident that turned hesitation into final resolve. Long before Catherine refused Windsor, there was one evening that changed everything. It was not a headline, not a balcony moment, and not a public insult. It was a private dinner inside Clarence's house, where a single sentence landed with enough force to alter the family's future. Catherine left that room composed, but something inside her trust had quietly closed. Catherine had arrived that evening, prepared to listen, but not prepared to surrender her own pain. Clarence's house, the London royal residence long used for private meetings and family discussions, had been chosen because Charles believed its quieter setting could calm the pressure building around the family. The dinner had been arranged 3 months before the Windsor invitation, at a time when tension between Catherine, William, Charles, and Camilla had become too heavy to ignore. To the king, the meal was supposed to reset relations before the fracture became permanent. To Catherine, the very arrangement felt controlled from the start. The seating felt deliberate. The timing felt forced. The careful tone around the table made her feel as if the outcome had already been written before she had even spoken. William noticed it first. The prince watched Catherine choose every word with painful care, because she knew one wrong sentence could be twisted into disloyalty. She quietly objected to being used as the symbol of unity, while her private concerns were treated as something inconvenient, something to be softened, postponed, or dressed in royal language. Charles tried to hold the room together. He believed calm could still save the moment, but when he asked Catherine to help the family move forward, the words struck her differently. They did not sound like comfort. They sounded like another request for her to carry silence gracefully, while everyone else called it peace. Camilla changed the room with one sentence. The queen consort suggested that some private hurts had to be set aside for the crown, and Catherine set down her glass without taking another sip. The crown meant more than a jewel or a title. It meant the royal institution itself, the public duty that often demanded personal sacrifice from those born or married into it. That was why the comment mattered. Catherine heard the old bargain again. Give more, say less, stand still, and let the monarchy survive on your restraint. Charles saw her face tighten. William saw her hands still, and Camilla understood too late that the sentence had not healed anything. It had exposed everything. Catherine left that dinner without raising her voice, and that restraint made the moment more dangerous. In the car afterward, she told William she would never again attend a private royal gathering where forgiveness was expected without truth being spoken first. The prince did not argue. He knew the line had been drawn. So when the Windsor reunion invitation arrived, Catherine did not see a fresh beginning. She saw the same room, the same pressure, and the same silence, returning in another form. That memory followed Catherine all the way to the moment Charles finally asked for the conversation that would decide everything. The confrontation did not begin with shouting. It began with two people speaking softly because both understood that loud words would make the damage impossible to hide. King Charles asked Catherine to reconsider, expecting hesitation, perhaps sadness, perhaps a request for time. Instead, he met a calm refusal so firm that the king found himself without the language to challenge it. Charles reached for Catherine directly because he knew the situation had moved beyond aids, notes, and careful palace wording. He did not want a private secretary to carry the wound for him. He wanted to hear her voice, and perhaps, in hearing it, find a way to pull the reunion back from collapse. The king believed one personal appeal might still reach the woman he had long seen as a steady force inside the family. The reunion mattered because it was meant to protect the royal image before a major public appearance. And it mattered even more because Catherine's absence would make the family's fracture impossible to disguise. If she stayed away, Windsor would not look peaceful. It would look wounded. Catherine agreed to speak, but she made her boundary clear before the call began. She told William she would listen, but she would not be pushed into a performance of forgiveness. The prince stayed nearby, not as a voice over hers, but as a quiet witness to what she had already chosen. Catherine understood the pressure behind Charles' request. She knew the palace wanted unity, and she knew the crown, the royal institution built around duty, public service, and inherited responsibility, often asked people to bury private pain for public calm. But this time, she would not let royal language turn her hurt into an inconvenience. Charles spoke first with restraint, asking her to reconsider for the sake of the family. Catherine did not interrupt him. She let the words settle, then answered with a quiet force that changed the entire tone of the conversation. The king told her that the family needed her presence at Windsor, and she replied that needing her presence was not the same as respecting her pain. That sentence landed harder than anger. It gave Charles no easy path to defend himself, because Catherine was not rejecting family. She was rejecting the demand that she heal on command. William heard it and remained silent, because the decision belonged to her alone. Catherine's most powerful line came without bitterness. She said she would not sit at Windsor and pretend a wound had healed, just because the crown required a photograph of peace. Charles had expected sorrow. He had expected hesitation. He had not expected such controlled truth. The king fell silent, because Catherine had named what everyone around the palace had tried to soften. The reunion asked too much, from the person who had already carried the most emotional labor. She had been asked to steady rooms, calm storms, and represent grace. Yet now she was being asked to erase the cost. William's silence became a second refusal. The prince did not rescue Charles from the pause. He did not soften Catherine's words. He allowed the king to hear them exactly as they were meant. In that silence, Windsor's balance shifted. Catherine had said no, but the deeper shock was what her refusal revealed. Emotional authority no longer belonged only to the throne. It belonged to the person strong enough to stop pretending. But the refusal also raised a dangerous question inside the palace. If Catherine could say no, who truly held power over the monarchy's emotional image? And that question led Windsor away from feeling and into power, where every private decision carried public consequences. Catherine's refusal was not loud, but it carried the force of a constitutional tremor inside the family. For years, palace power had depended on obedience wrapped in dignity. Yet now, the future queen had drawn a line that no courtier could erase. The decision revealed something Windsor feared. Catherine's moral authority had begun to outweigh the machinery built to contain her. Palace aides understood the danger almost immediately. Catherine's absence could not be treated like a diary problem or a sudden change in private plans. It was deliberate. It was emotional. And because it came from her, it could not be easily dismissed. The courtier assigned to deliver the final written confirmation carried it with the careful fear of someone holding more than paper. A courtier is a senior palace worker who manages private royal duties, messages, and arrangements behind the scenes. That detail mattered because this was exactly the kind of crisis those workers were trained to soften, control, and bury. But this time, the refusal had already escaped control before a single public word had been spoken. Charles read the confirmation slowly. The king's face moved from concern to wounded disbelief, and one senior aide watching him knew that something deeper than disappointment had entered the room. He still held the throne, still carried the highest royal authority, still stood at the center of the monarchy's official life. But Catherine held something no title could simply command: public trust. She had become a symbol of steadiness through repeated storms, and that made her refusal far more powerful than an ordinary absence. If she stayed away, the family could not pretend the room was whole. If she was pressured to attend, the pressure itself could become the scandal. Camilla felt the air tighten around her. The queen consort understood that Catherine's choice made every previous private push feel suddenly visible, even without one direct accusation being spoken. That was the danger. Catherine had not attacked anyone. She had not issued a dramatic statement. She had simply said no, and the silence around that word began exposing the hidden cost of every old demand for unity. Charles could sense it too. The king had wanted reconciliation, but now he was forced to face the possibility that the very method chosen to create peace had revealed the wound instead. William became the final barrier. The prince refused to override Catherine, and that decision changed everything. He did not frame her refusal as emotion that needed correcting. He treated it as a boundary that deserved respect. His loyalty as a husband came before any request made in the name of palace unity, and the palace could feel the shift. For years, duty had been used as the language of pressure. Now William had turned duty back toward protection. That mattered, because the future king was not just defending Catherine in private. He was shaping the emotional rules of the monarchy that would one day belong to him. Catherine's no revealed the truth Windsor feared most. Emotional legitimacy could no longer be forced from the people expected to protect the institution. The crown might arrange rooms, invitations, and statements, but it could not manufacture forgiveness from someone who had reached the edge of endurance. Once that truth entered the room, the reunion itself began to collapse before the first guest had even crossed the Windsor threshold. And as the palace tried to adjust, the consequences of Catherine's refusal began spreading faster than anyone around Charles expected. By the time the Windsor clocks reached the hour of the planned reunion, the palace already knew the evening had failed. The table remained set, the chairs remained aligned, and the staff moved with careful discipline. But Catherine's absence changed the meaning of every object in the room. What had been prepared as a gesture of healing now looked like proof of a family unable to heal. Charles entered with the heavy knowledge that no adjustment could save what had already been broken. The reunion had been arranged inside a private Windsor sitting room, away from official photographers, away from public announcements, and away from the polished language that usually protected royal tension from outside judgment. A palace diary is the private record used to track royal engagements and internal arrangements. And in that diary, the gathering was meant to appear small, controlled, and deeply personal. That mattered because the family had needed this moment to stay hidden. If it worked, unity could be quietly restored. If it failed, the failure would reveal that even behind closed doors, peace could no longer be arranged by command. Aides had tried to rescue the evening before Charles arrived. Some suggested reducing the gathering. Others considered delaying it. A few whispered about reframing the reunion as an informal conversation, as if changing the label could soften the wound. But Catherine's absence was not a detail. It was the center of the story. The king saw the place where she should have sat and stopped long enough for the room to understand that he was struggling. His silence carried more pain than anger. He had believed Windsor could hold the family together one more time, but now the room seemed to answer him with the truth he had tried to avoid. Camilla sat beside him, without offering comfort too quickly. The Queen Consort understood that one wrong word could make the tension worse, because Catherine's refusal had shifted the balance between Charles and the Wales household. The Wales household meant William, Catherine, and their immediate family unit, the future branch of the monarchy that carried enormous public meaning. That was why the absence mattered beyond one chair. It showed that William and Catherine were no longer willing to let private pain be folded into palace strategy. Camilla could feel that shift, and her stillness carried calculation as much as concern. William arrived only briefly, but his presence changed the room again. The prince did not come to replace Catherine, or to soften the refusal into something easier for Charles to accept. He came to say, with careful respect, that she would not be pressured privately or publicly. The words were measured, but the message was iron. Charles listened, and the pain in his face deepened, because William had not spoken as a rebel son. He had spoken as a husband drawing a boundary around the woman who had already given too much. Charles finally placed his napkin beside the untouched setting and said there was no point continuing a reunion, missing the person it most needed. The meeting ended early, not with outrage, but with a quiet defeat that felt even heavier. Yet the collapse of the reunion created one unexpected opening. Charles and William were finally left without aides, without ceremony, and without anyone else to blame. In that stripped-down moment, father and son faced each other not as symbols, but as two men standing in the ruins of a family plan. The turning point came after the failed reunion, when Charles asked William to remain behind. No aides stayed, no private secretary took notes, no palace language softened the pain. For the first time that evening, father and son faced the truth without the protection of titles. What followed was not a royal negotiation. It was a family reckoning, spoken in low voices. Charles moved away from the room that had collapsed under Catherine's absence, and William followed without a word. The king no longer looked like a man trying to manage a gathering. He looked like a father who had reached the edge of a truth he had avoided for too long. They stepped into a smaller Windsor room, leaving behind the formal setting that had made the evening feel staged. A private secretary is the senior aide who usually records, organizes, and protects royal business, but no such buffer remained now. That mattered, because without official language, no one could turn pain into procedure. Without witnesses, neither man could hide behind duty. William spoke first, and the calm in his voice made the words heavier. The prince told Charles that Catherine's refusal was not rebellion. It was exhaustion. She had spent too long steadying the family, too long entering difficult rooms with grace, too long being expected to smooth tension, while rarely being allowed to name what had hurt her. Charles listened, and for a moment, his anger seemed to fade into something quieter. Sorrow. Recognition. The king had wanted Catherine to attend, because he believed her presence could heal the fracture. William made him understand that asking her to appear healed was not the same as allowing healing to happen. Charles did not interrupt, and that silence changed the conversation. The monarch had spent years trusting in the strength of Catherine's composure, but William forced him to see the cost beneath it. The future queen had become a symbol of calm inside the royal family, and that mattered because the public often looked to her for stability when everything else seemed uncertain. But symbols are still human. Grace can still become heavy. Silence can still become pain. William told his father that Catherine had protected the monarchy many times, yet protection should never become a reason to drain the person offering it. Charles finally admitted what no aide could have written for him. He said, quietly, that he had mistaken Catherine's grace for endless capacity, and her silence for consent. The words did not repair everything, but they broke something open. William did not demand an apology. He did not raise his voice. He simply made one boundary clear. There would be no future family reunion unless Catherine entered it freely, honestly, and without pressure. The king absorbed that sentence like a verdict, because it meant the old methods had failed. No arranged room, no royal duty, no appeal to unity would be enough without truth. William left Charles with more than disappointment. He left him with a new rule for the family's future. Catherine would not be summoned into peace. She would have to choose it. That private understanding changed how the palace prepared its response. But the outside world was already beginning to notice the missing face at Windsor. And once Catherine's absence moved from palace corridors into public view, the story became larger than one family's private pain. The public did not see the phone call. They did not hear Catherine's refusal or Charles's silence. But they saw enough. Windsor's carefully controlled calm could not hide the missing presence at the heart of the story. By morning, one image captured the national mood, a palace window lit from within, while the person everyone expected to see remained absent. Charles understood the danger as soon as the first statement left the palace. It was brief, careful, and polished, describing the Windsor gathering as private, but even perfect wording could not hide what mattered most. Catherine had not attended. The palace statement was meant to protect the family from speculation, but instead, it gave the absence an official shape. That mattered, because royal silence often speaks louder than royal explanation. When the monarchy says little, the public studies every missing name, every softened phrase, every pause between words. And this time, the missing name was the one people trusted to steady the room. Broadcasters seized on the absence almost immediately. They did not treat it like a simple diary conflict or a quiet family adjustment. They framed it as a rupture because Catherine rarely missed moments designed to project stability. The word stability carried real weight here. For the royal family, it meant more than calm faces and public appearances. It meant the belief that the institution could survive private storms without letting the cracks show. Yet Catherine's refusal had made the cracks visible, not through accusation, not through a dramatic speech, through absence, through restraint, through the quiet power of not appearing where everyone expected her to be. Charles watched the morning coverage alone for several minutes, and the judgment seemed to grow heavier with every sentence. The king turned the volume down without switching it off, as if he could not bear the sound, but also could not look away from the consequence. He had wanted a private reunion to protect the monarchy from public pressure. Instead, the failed gathering had become the very story he hoped to avoid. Somewhere else, William saw the same coverage with Catherine beside him. The prince did not ask whether she regretted it. He did not search her face for doubt. He simply reached for her hand, and that silent gesture said what no palace briefing could safely say. She had not stood alone. One public moment captured everything. A major London newspaper ran a front page showing Windsor's illuminated windows beneath the headline, "The Chair She Would Not Take." It was sharp. It was brutal. It turned Catherine's empty place into a national symbol. Outside Windsor Castle, a small crowd gathered near the gates, not shouting, not celebrating, not condemning, just watching, with phones in hand, as though the silence behind the walls had become the story itself. Some saw Catherine's refusal as painful. Others saw it as brave. Public sympathy did not break evenly, but by the end of the day, one truth became clear. Catherine's refusal had not weakened her image, it had strengthened it. And that public understanding forced the final verdict, not from commentators or courtiers, but from the emotional truth the monarchy could no longer avoid. In the end, the Windsor reunion did not fail because Catherine refused to attend. It failed because the family had waited too long to understand why she needed to refuse. King Charles was left speechless, not by disrespect, but by recognition. Catherine's absence revealed the cost of demanding unity without repair, loyalty without listening, and grace without limit. Catherine carried sorrow, but she did not carry regret. She knew her refusal had hurt Charles, and that knowledge did not leave her untouched. Yet the pain of causing disappointment was smaller than the pain of betraying her own truth one more time. The monarchy emerged from the failed reunion changed, because she had shown that emotional duty could not be separated from dignity. The monarchy, meaning the royal institution built on public service, inherited roles, and family symbolism, had always depended on people doing difficult things quietly. But Catherine's decision proved that quiet strength did not mean endless surrender. It mattered, because the family could no longer treat her grace as a resource to be used whenever unity needed saving. Charles remained king, but Windsor had taught him a lesson no ceremony could soften. He still held the throne, still carried the public weight of the crown, still stood as the monarch in the eyes of the nation. Yet leadership inside a family required more than invitations, tradition, and carefully arranged rooms. Charles had wanted peace, but he had tried to reach it through structure instead of truth. He had believed that bringing everyone together would heal the wound. Catherine's refusal forced him to see the harder reality. People do not heal because a room is prepared for them. They heal when their pain is finally respected. William stood at the heart of that final meaning. The prince's loyalty to Catherine became the emotional backbone of the entire crisis, because he proved that the future of the monarchy would be shaped by protection as much as protocol. Protocol means the formal rules and customs that guide royal behavior, and for generations, it had often been treated as stronger than personal feeling. But William showed a different future. He did not ask Catherine to bend so the palace could look whole. He stood beside her because he understood that a family built only on appearances would eventually lose the people holding it together. Charles's speechlessness became the symbol of a monarchy facing its own reflection. The king could command ceremonies, arrange gatherings, and shape statements, but he could not command forgiveness. Catherine was no longer simply the graceful figure expected to absorb tension for the crown. She became the boundary the monarchy had to respect. For Charles, it was a painful lesson in the limits of authority. For William, it confirmed where his deepest loyalty stood. For Catherine, it was the day silence became strength. And for the monarchy, it marked the end of pretending that family unity could survive without truth. There was nothing left to stage, nothing left to disguise, and nothing left to force. Windsor had received its answer, and Catherine's refusal became the final word. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.